Well, when I began as the pastor here 5 years ago, we had an old corrugated plastic sign in the sign box in front of the church. And the sign had the name of our church, Douglas Congregational United Church of Christ. It said, "All are welcome." It had the time of our service and our phone number. And because we hadn't had a pastor here in quite a while, the name of the previous pastor was covered over with construction paper. The sign was old and yellowed and bent. It just wasn't a pretty sight. So I was so grateful shortly after I started that a very generous donor here came forward and actually asked a fourth-generation sign artist here in Saugatuck, Robert Krause, to create and install the beautiful sign that we have now. But, shortly after it was installed, a few members of the congregation came to me and said that they were disappointed, not with the look of the new sign, but with the fact that the words, "all are welcome," were no longer on the new sign. And they explained to me how much those words meant to them when they first started coming to this church back in the 1980s and 90s. They said that there were not a lot of Christian churches in West Michigan where all people were welcome, especially people from the LGBTQ community. So those words meant a lot to them. Now, if we drive around West Michigan right now, we're going to see a lot of churches that have some form of "all are welcome" on their signs. And I said to you a while back, if I can't be married in your church, if I can't be hired in your church, if I can't be ordained in your church, then am I really welcome there? But today I want to actually put the spotlight on us. I want us to look in the mirror. Because we say that we at Douglas UCC are a place where all are welcome. But is that really true? If someone started coming to our church week after week with a gun in his holster, wearing a hat that had the Confederate flag on it, and a shirt with the Nazi swastika on it, would he really be welcome here? If during Joys and Concerns he stood up and he said, "I want to pray for all transgender people because they're going to hell," or if the next week he stood up and said, "I want to express a great joy that all of those rotten and dirty immigrants are being thrown into cages. Thank you, God," would that person really be welcome here? Does our extravagant welcome extend to people who espouse hatred and prejudice and discrimination? A couple of years ago during the Muslim ban, we had this sign out in front of our church, and it says, "Hate has no home here," in all different languages. Hate has no home here. That is the truth. In this church, hate is not welcome. Now you may say, "Well, Pastor Sal, Jesus told us to love our enemies." And that is true. We are to love our enemies, but that does not mean that we have to be silent and to tolerate their intolerance. In fact, we are being called as Christians to speak out against intolerance, not to be silent about it. That is not what love does. Now, I mentioned this to you this morning because that's what today's gospel reading is all about. Maybe some of you were really shocked by today's gospel. I meet Christians all the time who said, "I never knew that Jesus said that." It is shocking for us to hear Jesus say, "You think I came to bring peace? I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring division. Even families are going to be divided." That's what he said. And it's shocking to us because we grew up hearing that Jesus was the Prince of Peace, that he came to bring peace, but he said, "I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring division." So what does that mean? Well, Jesus did teach us to be peaceful. He told us it in so many ways, time and time again. He said, "Love your enemies, turn the other cheek, Forgive them 70 times, 7 times. Bless those who persecute you. But Jesus was also a truth teller, and he knew that by speaking truth, there would be division. You know, I told you before, Jesus wasn't killed because he was just a nice guy going around spreading peace, love, and joy. He was killed because he was speaking truth and causing division. And that's why he needed to be silenced. So for us today, if we are to follow his way of speaking truth, we're going to experience division. That's part of it. Some of you in this room in the past couple of years, you have been experiencing the division in your family that Jesus spoke about today. You're speaking the truth to your family members and friends and coworkers about your religious beliefs, your political convictions, your sexual orientation or your gender identity, and that's causing division. Now, you could say, well, I want to be a peacekeeper, so you know what? I'm going to be silent. I'm just going to keep quiet because I don't want to make waves. I just want everybody around me to be at ease and comfortable, so I'm not going to really speak my truth and just be quiet about it. It's what we heard about that Lynn read for us in our words of integration and guidance this morning, this conspiracy of silences. You know, people who say, well, yeah, Grandpa is always making racist comments, but, you know, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to make waves in the family. I want the family to be at peace. Or they say, yeah, I hear my boss, he's always making these comments that are not very nice about women. But I don't want to speak up because, you know, I don't want to get in trouble at work. I just don't want to make waves. You know, people who, for whatever reason, just want to be nice. Well, the writer Naomi Schulman wrote about these people, and she said, nice people made the best Nazis. My mom grew up next to them. They got along. They refused to make waves. They looked the other way when things got ugly, and they focused on happier things than politics. They were lovely people who turned their heads as their neighbors were dragged away. But you want to know who weren't nice people? The resistors. That's what Jesus is speaking about in today's gospel. Okay? He is saying if we want to follow his way of resistance, we have got to take a stand and speak truth, and that will lead to division. But division isn't the goal. The goal is vision, not division. We have a vision. What is the vision? It's this vision of the kingdom of heaven here on earth. This just world for all. That's the vision. But in order for us to get to that vision, there is going to be division. Jesus is letting us know that is part of the process of building the kingdom. Now, you and I have seen this in our own lifetime, those of us who grew up in the 20th century. We saw, for example, that integration and civil rights led to great division in this country. We saw that women's liberation led to great division in this country, and we saw that marriage equality led to great division in this country. But all of that division has led to a more just and inclusive nation. That is why we understand that we cannot be silent any longer. Now, you and I are living at a very divisive time. Jesus said in today's gospel, pay attention to the signs of the times. You can read the weather, read the signs of the times. And we are living in a very divisive time right now. But there's a reason for that. It's because people are saying, we have had enough. I am not being silent anymore. I'm going to speak the truth. We've seen that in such great numbers in recent years. Thousands of women who for decades have remained silent have come forward with great courage to speak the truth about the abuse they have experienced at the hands of rich and powerful men. They are finally speaking that truth. We see that there are thousands of people who are coming forward after decades of silence to speak truth about the abuse they received at the hands of the church. All those decades they kept silent, didn't want to say anything bad about the church, about the priests. But now they are speaking the truth. And yes, it is causing division. That's what Jesus was getting at. We have young people who they grew up and all they knew going to school was about school shootings. It's always been a part of their life. Finally, they are speaking the truth about it. And if you turn on the news right now, you'll see that thousands of people for 11 weeks now have been taking to the streets in China, finally speaking truth to their government about their independence. So yes, when we speak the truth and no longer remain silent and be nice, there is going to be division. But division isn't the goal. The goal is that vision that Jesus spoke about. He said, I want to set the world on fire and I wish it was already kindled. And he talks about the great stress it was bringing him. To set the world on fire means to tear down those old structures, those old ways of thinking and being, so that we can bring about the kingdom, this new world, this new place, this just world for all. So if we are to truly call ourselves followers of the way of Jesus, we've got to be about that. We have to have the courage to speak that truth, even if it's going to bring division in our family. That's what we're being called to do. Jesus did that. He called people hypocrites. You heard it in today's gospel. He called them hypocrites to their faces. Jesus was not neutral. Jesus took sides. That surprises a lot of Christians. They think, oh, well, Jesus was nice. He liked everybody. Well, Jesus did love everyone, and he calls us to love everyone. But he also spoke truth, taking sides and taking a stand. Elie Wiesel, the writer who survived the concentration camps during the Holocaust, said, we must always take sides, for our silence benefits the oppressor, never the oppressed. We must always take sides. Jesus did, and we have to have the courage to do so as well. It does not make us unkind or not nice or unchristian or un-American. In fact, it's just the opposite. It means that we are people who give a damn, people who care deeply and love wastefully. For love is what justice looks like in action. Namaste.